Welcome to the Here's Hope Project, where your story creates hope. I'm Sarah Jane, and in today's episode, we're going to be speaking with Demi, who has 2 kids with special needs. Now, she has one son named Ollie, who is 5, and he has something called caudal regression syndrome. If you haven't heard of it, don't worry, we're going to get into it. She also has another son named George, who is 3, and he has cerebral palsy. So having one child with special needs can be overwhelming. So having 2 is twice as hard, if not more. So we're going to talk today just about what daily life looks like, what kind of stresses and worries she has, how it affects her relationships with friends and family, even her husband. We have quite a bit that we're going to talk about today, so you'll want to stay for the whole thing. I don't want to say too much, though, because I want you to watch. So yeah, let's just go meet Demi.
'Cause it's here where we lay in my blanket of despair, where I'm weak but I'm strong and black smoke fills the air, where I'm burning broken.
Demi, it is so good to see you. Thanks for coming on today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah. So I guess to give our listeners just a little bit of background, you and I have known each other for a few years now.
Mhm.
And I found you guys because you had a photo that went viral. It was a photo of you and Ollie at a Target, and Ollie was looking up at a clothing advertisement that had a kid in a wheelchair just like him. And it was such a sweet and heartwarming photo, and it really showed the impact and the importance that inclusion can have.
Mhm.
Yeah, it really did. And the photo, like I said, ended up going viral. You were on the Kelly Clarkson show. You gained thousands of followers. You have over 14,000 followers now. And, you're out here just inspiring people and spreading awareness. And you are doing an incredible job at that, honestly. You really are at just sharing
Yeah.
Ollie's story.
Thank you.
Yeah, of course. And it's not just Ollie's story. I mean, Ollie has a younger brother, George, who is 3, and he has his own struggles with cerebral palsy. And yeah, I mean, I think one of the things, there's so many things that I admire about you and just am really inspired by. But one of the things I think that kind of drew me to you as well is that I don't know that many families that have 2 special needs kids. And so I'm super curious about just what life is like and how you kind of deal with the everyday struggles.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a
Yes.
different life for sure.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, it must be. So let's just get to it. I'd like to start with Ollie because Ollie is 5 and he has something called caudal regression syndrome.
Mhm.
And I'm pretty sure that most of the people listening have never heard of that. I mean, I've never heard of that until I met you. So can you explain what caudal regression syndrome is and then sort of the struggles and obstacles that Ollie faces?
Yeah, it's like you said, not heard of. It's very rare. There's 1 in 100,000 births, and so it's there's really just a community of maybe 2,000 people in the world documented and that have been able to connect. But really his condition, it's a malformation of the spine that causes deformities to the lower body. And in Oliver's condition, he is missing from T11 of his spine all the way down. And his legs are fixed in a Buddha style position, and he's got complications with some of his lower internal organs, that we face with daily. But he's a strong go-getter, and nothing stops him from doing what he wants to do.
No, it really doesn't. And that's one of the things and I'm sure I've told you before, that really inspires me. I mean, he's pretty independent for 5. And
Yeah. Yeah, for being paralyzed too. There's a lot of limitations he has, but there's more that he doesn't have, which, and when you look on paper, it looks like a scary thing, but he's doing fantastic and he's thriving.
yeah, he really is. I mean, when you see him, I'm so impressed by the things that he can do. I mean, he can skateboard, he likes kayaking. You just got back from archery just now before coming on here. He does gymnastics. I mean, things that you wouldn't normally think that he could do, he finds a way. And I love that.
Yeah.
Because I think we sometimes as a society, put limits on people, especially that have disabilities. And really, they would surprise us just with they just find different ways to do it. They can still do it, just maybe a different way. And
Yeah.
that's,
Yeah, there's definitely limitations to every disability, and limitations aren't always a bad thing. You want to embrace who you are, but you want to also explore what you can do, and you would be surprised you can do a lot more than what you think you can usually.
yeah, exactly. So you have all this stuff going on with Ollie, and then a few years later, George is born, and I know he was healthy, everything seemed great until about 6 weeks when you found out he had cerebral palsy. And so, what kind of thoughts went through your mind when you realized that now you had two kids with disabilities?
To be honest, at first I was very numb to it. I didn't have a lot of reaction. I kind of feel like I didn't accept it at first. When you get a cerebral palsy diagnosis, it's because of typically a brain bleed, and when you have that, they don't diagnose you with cerebral palsy until months or years later, because it's technically the complications that come with whatever has happened. So we didn't technically get the diagnosis, but we knew that it would be in the future. So unfortunately, you're left with this little glimpse of hope that things might heal and get better. And, they usually don't. And that's where you get the diagnosis. But, as time went on and we started to really see the symptoms and accept what was really happening in his body, there was definitely some hard times, but, you kind of just learn to roll with it and take it day by day and do your best.
Yeah. So, speaking of day by day, what does a typical day look like for you?
Well, we try and keep things as normal as possible. We try and make it look like a regular day-to-day family. We have a lot of therapies and doctor's appointments, and getting the kids ready for school takes a lot longer with AFOs and SMOs and their wheelchairs in and out of the car. But aside from that, we try and do breakfast, lunch, dinner. We do things on the weekends as a family. We take trips if we can, which is a whole other experience.
Yeah, that's another
But
ordeal.
yes, yeah, that's a different conversation. But we wouldn't survive if we tried to be as much of a normal family as possible.
Yeah. Normalcy, it's pretty cool and good that you're able to maintain that and do that. So what would you say that like the most emotionally challenging thing is when it comes to raising your boys?
Um, I would say at the top would be worrying about their future. It's you can worry about the day to day and the stress of appointments and worrying about insurance and funding and worrying about, their health in general, is always a day to day concern. But worrying about their future is probably the biggest struggle that me and their dad has. Not knowing, in their future, are they going to be successful? Are they going to be taken care of? Are they going to be happy? And we don't know, and we can do the best we can every day to set them up for success and, advocate for them and get their communities to support them. So when we're not around, they can be supported in other ways. But there's so many unknowns. And until that happens, it's nerve wracking.
Yeah, for sure. And I'm sure a big part of that too is finances. Like, will they be able to support themselves, or if they need government aid, how does that work? And if they'd even be able to get it. So,
Yeah, financial aid and support. When you're disabled, you're unfortunately kept under a poverty line. And with that, you aren't allowed to make more than a certain amount of money. And currently, it's only $2,000, that you can have at one time, which means you can't save for a house, you can't save for a car, you can't save for anything to get ahead in your future. And when you're a family, it's hard. But as an individual trying to, when my kids are 18, 19, 20, trying to start their life, that's going to be difficult for them.
yeah, $2,000 is not enough. And I think
No.
you said that like the law came into effect in like 1989 or 86?
It was like 1986 or 7 or something like that. were, yeah, $2,000. And, the economy has changed, and they've tried passing bills, and they're currently right now trying to pass another bill to raise that to $10,000. In the past, it's been denied, and we fully expect it to be denied again, unfortunately. But it's kind of a hot topic right now, so we're hoping that the more fire that we raise will make that change.
Yeah. I mean, I hope they do. I mean, $10,000 would make a big difference, because I mean, it's kind of a system that's set up for failure right now, to have
Absolutely.
$2,000 in your pocket. Like, you can't go above that.
Yeah, you can't even pay any apartment to rent for that price with your utilities. You can't get a used car for that price practically.
Yeah, I mean, there's that, but then also too, like the appointments that they have, PT, like a wheelchair could cost maybe like $1,500, but insurance may not even cover it, or won't cover all of that. And so there's a lot of expenses and things that you have to consider. So
Absolutely.
I hope it does get increased.
Me too. Yep.
Yeah. So what would you say the most, or I don't know, how are you able to maintain a sense of positivity and hope about their future?
Like I said, day to day stuff. When they hit milestones that you didn't expect them to hit, or you expected it, but it's going to take years longer. It's the little things that really keep you going. With our little Georgie, he's 3 years old, and he just took his first steps in a walker, and that was huge because I never thought he would be able to stand. And he can't even sit up on his own for more than a couple seconds. And so being able to stand up and use his legs, tells me he's got the potential. And so that brings a lot of hope into our house when they do stuff that they can do. And if we know that they're not making milestones or not making their goals, we find hope in other things. Like they're both very smart boys, and we're so blessed that they're going to be doctors and lawyers, hopefully someday.
You never know. They could be.
Yeah. Oliver wants to be a doctor, so
that's
fingers
awesome.
crossed. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, fingers crossed. But yeah, I remember with George, how excited you got just with his gait trainer, with how he was. And so now he's able to walk independently, just a few steps though.
We have to still hold his hands, or he has a little, it's called a Nimbo walker, but it looks like a little granny walker, and that has no trunk support. So that abdomen support is usually what's really needed for him. But now that he's able to hold himself up better and walk on his own, he just needs that balance, stability, and he's going.
And he'll keep on going.
Oh yes, every day he asks, "I want to walk. I want to walk. I want to walk," and he's got the motivation, so we have the motivation.
Yeah, that's one of the things I love about the kids, is they tend to inspire the parents so much and give them the hope and positivity they need, because the kids really are, inspiring, and they really are determined and go after it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Their happiness is really what keeps us going.
Yeah, I would think it would be. So we talked about the future, about how that's so stressful, but what would you say is the most overwhelming thing just with day to day that's hard?
The limitations that we have, if let's say I have one or both boys in the car, we can't just walk our toddler into the gas station to get a Gatorade. We can't run into the store unless we have the equipment with us. And if we don't, we have to plan our whole day around it. So physically, we're constantly lifting equipment, and some of it's light, some of it's heavier than me. Carrying the boys, as they get bigger and bigger and bigger, takes a toll on our body, and that's becoming stressful. I need to get in better shape so I can, carry George when he's 15 years old. And that's going to be something we have to work on. But day to day, it's just getting from one point to another. Every step that we do throughout the day is a transition, and it's a task, and it's a challenge. Even just getting the kids to school, we have to make sure their chairs are loaded, and finding the right parking spot at school, and then unloading the chairs, and we can't just pull up to the curb like everybody else. And open the door and the kid runs out, we have to get out, get around the car, unload, unbuckle. Our 3 and 5-year-old, which most 3 and 5-year-olds are still in car seats and booster seats, but they will always be in car seats and booster seats for a majority of their childhood. And so that's just one step that we have to do for longer, and there's toileting, and it's just a little extra steps that we have to do, and it takes a toll on us.
Yeah, I mean, that's a lot of steps. What would you say helps you stay like grounded, or just helps you cope with that, with the overwhelm?
We just have to remind ourselves that it's not that hard, and there are people who have it a lot harder than us. We've seen situations where there's kids who, unfortunately need full 24-hour around the clock care. And I'm thankful that my boys can still have independent time and do some things independently. And some people don't have that luxury. And that's a lot harder than, what we have to deal with. So I just remind myself that it could be harder, it could be worse, and they're healthy and happy. And we just got the cards that we got, and we have to live with it. Everybody's life is different, and this is ours.
Yep. Okay. So I ask almost every parent this when they come in. This is my 8th episode. And for those listening, I'm sorry if I sound like a broken record, but it's just because it's an important question. And that is, how do you find me time?
It's hard. It really is, because you've adapted your whole identity around caretaking. And because that's the only thing that you're used to and you're dedicated to, and it's what you do all day, every day, finding that me time is very hard. And I've needed help. Sometimes your me time is being able to go to the grocery store for an hour. Sometimes it's being able to take a nap while the kids are napping. It's kind of like back to when you have a newborn, when you don't have an identity for several months, you're just that mom. And, recently I've met a wonderful group of mom friends from school, and we went out for drinks the other day, and that was amazing, because I don't think I've done that in 10 years.
Oh, that's great.
We got to go out and have girl time and hang out for 2 whole hours. It was wonderful.
That's amazing, because I mean, even for you and your husband just to go out and have a date, it's not like it's easy to get a babysitter because of all the needs and the care that they have. So did your husband stay behind and you were able to go?
Yes.
Yeah.
It was nice.
Yeah. So I know your mom can come over sometimes to help. Do you get any dates with your husband or anything? How does this affect a marriage?
It's difficult. We, like you said, finding a babysitter is extremely difficult. We have my mom, but she can only do an hour or 2 at a time. And, she has her life and her schedule. And so it's hard for her to step away and, do a late night date night type thing. And so, usually it's just a couple hours where me and my husband get to run errands together without the kids. We don't really get overnights or trips or vacations or anything like that, because our kids are high needs. And as much as other people don't want to watch our kids, we struggle to put our kids in other people's hands, because we're so, protective, and we want them to be in the best care, and it's hard. So yeah, it's affected our marriage in ways that we didn't think it would. And there's been trials, and, where we just have to rely on each other and support each other, even when we are broken and beaten down. And having disabled kids can make or break a marriage. Unfortunately, it goes one way or the other. And we strove to prove that wrong and say that, we're not going to let this break us. We are going to do everything we can to unite and do what's best for the kids and share these struggles together.
Yeah, that's great, because like you said, it is there's a high divorce rate in whether you have a chronically ill child or special needs, because it's hard. That's a hard life.
It's very difficult. Yeah. And, you thought 2 parents, 2 individuals in the world coming together to raise a child, you have your different opinions and your different ways of raising a child. And when you bring in a disability, everything changes, because now you're raising a child in such a complex way. And that really puts strain on two people who are, everybody has this idea of how they want to raise a child. And when you come together and you bring on that strain, it's harder.
Yeah. So, I mean, it obviously affects the marriage. I mean, congratulations for one, because that's a hard thing to get through. And it sounds like it's making you stronger. How
Yeah.
would you say it affects your relationship just with family and friends?
Well, we've noticed that, whether it's intentional or unintentional, we have been secluded from a lot of family and friends. We have a couple close family members who just adore the boys and will do anything to be around them, which is such a blessing and a big help for us. But we are, I hate to say the word, a burden to other people. And they ask us if we want to go out or want to do stuff and this and that, and we can tell them no 10 times, but we still want to be invited, we still want to be included. Our life is complicated, it's not as scheduled as everybody else. Things happen almost every day, and we want to be a part of it. And it's hard when we have friends who, they say they understand, they say they love us, but have slowly separated themselves from our lives because it's too complicated for us to be involved. And the thing is, it's not complicated for them, it's complicated for us. But if we are willing to do it, it's worth it, because it brings us out of our shell, it brings us into the world and into the community. And that's really what's needed.
Yeah, that's one unfortunate thing, I think, is, in the beginning, maybe you're invited to a lot of things, and then they're so used to getting the answer, no, like, no, I can't do it, or we have this, and then they just stop asking. And I know what that feels like in terms of me. I isolate myself. I'm not a very people person, social. And that happens with me too. It's just, I'll say no a lot because I'm just not feeling well, or just have a lot of anxiety or things like that, just a bad day. And they just expect you to say no. And so it just
Mhm.
doesn't happen. But yeah, that's an unfortunate thing. Yeah.
I personally, I strive to get other members of the community out together, and I run a small organization that's local where we provide free events for kids with disabilities. And we provide events in the community, and it's a way to bring kids and families together without the strain of having to sign up for an adaptive sport, which all kids don't always want to do a sport. So
Mhm.
sometimes they just want to go ice skating or out to pizza. And, this community is so important to have, especially having other people who understand what you're going through one way or another. It's a connection, and you need that connection. And so whether you're invited by friends from high school that have their own kids and do their own thing, that can be complicated. But when you go out and are on the ice with 10 other people who are in wheelchairs, that's like it's a day in heaven. It really is, because you feel so accepted. There's no questions, no concerns. Everybody's worried about the same things as you, and because of that, we all let go of those worries, and it's a beautiful thing to just have fun.
Oh, that's beautiful. That's amazing. I did not know you did that. What's
Yeah.
the organization called? What's it called?
It's called Arizona Junior Disabled Friends, and probably about 4 or 5 times a year we do really fun things out in the community. And sometimes we only have a couple kids, sometimes we have 15 families, sometimes we have 30 families. We just recently had a Halloween barbecue, and we had over 100 people show up, and it was just so fun. You got to make the change in the world when you need to.
Exactly. Create the change you want to see in the world.
Exactly. Yes.
So what kind of, for other parents maybe like you that are just really stressed and or maybe even just starting out, what kind of advice or is there anything you could say to help make it easier for them?
I would say, it gets easier, and it gets easier and it gets harder, but it becomes more of a flow. You get used to the ins and outs, you get used to the hard and the easy, and it becomes something that you're used to. And like I said, it does sometimes get harder in different ways, but it's not as hard to handle. You get very used to it. Um, like, find that community, find those people who understand you, and not just on Facebook, find them in person, go out, hang out, play, be in the community and show the world around you that you are like everybody else and you deserve the same happiness as everybody else. Be your child's biggest advocate and never stop. You just got to keep going, and don't forget who you are as a person, because that is really easy to lose. And you just got to really, as much as your identity becomes that special needs parent, you are still yourself. And you have to remember that, and you have to really just you know, keep your identity, as much as you can.
Yeah, that's great advice. That's a lot of advice, but it's good advice.
It is. I
Nice.
could speak for hours on it, but yes, that's the gist of it.
Yeah. So for any parent that's listening, if they have any questions or want to reach out, or maybe someone listening also has a child with caudal regression syndrome, because that's very rare to find someone. How can they find you and reach you?
I've got a couple different ways you can find me, through my son's Facebook page, Ollie's World. That's a good one. Even if you're not in Arizona, you can contact me on Facebook through Arizona Junior Disabled Friends, or just my Facebook, Demi Brianna Porter. I am beyond happy to help anybody far and wide in any way that you need. I've helped a lady in London with her child, when she was newly diagnosed with caudal regression syndrome. They were stuck in the hospital. Their doctors didn't know what was going on, and I put 110% into getting them out of the hospital and getting them into a really comfortable life and where they were happy and ready to move forward. And so I am there for anybody who needs me, whether it's caudal regression syndrome or any disability of any kind. I am there to help. I will educate. I will educate myself, learn with you, be there for you.
One of the very, I don't know, many beautiful things about you.
Thank you.
Is there anything else we didn't? Oh, well, for anyone listening that does want to contact or reach out to her, I will put this information in the description of the podcast. But outside of that, is there anything else that maybe we didn't talk about, or that you want people to know, or just about what life is like?
Oh, not really. I think it's just mostly, finding that comfortable spot in the world. It doesn't have to be perfect and happy, and you don't have to look at the pictures of other families on Facebook and think, wow, I wish I had that, because not everybody has that. Everybody in the world has a different life, and you have to find what your life is going to look like and how it's supposed to be comfortable. Again, doesn't have to be perfect. Nobody's life is perfect. Everybody's got something going on, and this is what you've got, and this is just how you're going to roll your dice and play the game.
Yeah, and don't compare yourself with others or other families. It's a big thing.
Absolutely. That's the hardest thing to do in the beginning, but you cannot compare yourself.
Yeah. Well, all right. Thank you for coming on. I appreciate it.
Yeah, no, it was my pleasure.